Broken heart, it happened at the most painful moment of my life, my mother's burial. Everyone was crying, the choir was still singing softly, and the priest had just finished his last prayers. I was sitting quietly in the front row of the church, dressed in black, with my heart breaking into pieces. Then something I will never forget happened. My father, the man who was supposed to protect me, grabbed my arm and dragged me to the vestry at the side of the church. I thought he just wanted to talk to me in private about my mother. But no, what he did was something no child should ever go through. He forced himself on me, right there in the house of God. I screamed, I cried, I begged him to stop, but what neither of us realized was that the microphone was still on. Every sound, every cry, every plea I made echoed loudly through the church speakers. The congregation froze. The priest dropped his Bible. My family members stood in shock, listening in horror. That was the day my world shattered completely, and that was the day my darkest secret was no longer hidden. But before I tell you what happened after those shocking screams filled the church, let me start by introducing myself properly. My name is Emily. I am 24 years old, and I am speaking to you right now from Atlanta, Georgia. Please, if this is your first time hearing one of my stories, I want you to pause for a moment and click the subscribe button, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of my upcoming stories. I promise you, each of them will touch your heart and teach you lessons you will never forget. Also, before I continue, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I really want to know where my listeners are joining me from. Now let's go back to the beginning. The journey that led to that heartbreaking day. Growing up, my life was not normal. My mother was the strongest woman I ever knew. She did everything she could to protect me from the storm that was my father. My father was a man of two faces. To outsiders, he was a respected man, neatly dressed, charming, always sitting in the front pew of the church. People called him Brother James. They admired his devotion, his smile, his way of speaking. But inside our house behind closed doors, he was a monster. He controlled everything: what we ate, how we dressed, even when we spoke. If my mother disagreed with him, he would beat her so badly that sometimes she could not walk for days. I remember nights when I was just a little girl, holding her hand and crying as she whispered to me, "Don't cry, Emily. God sees everything. One day He will deliver us." But that deliverance never came for her. When I was only 16, my mother fell sick. At first it was small, just coughs and weakness. But as weeks turned into months, it grew worse. She lost weight, she could barely eat, and sometimes she fainted in the kitchen. My father never cared. Instead of taking her to the hospital, he accused her of being lazy, of pretending. He called her names. I watched my mother slowly fade away like a candle burning to its last flame. The day she died, I was right beside her. She held my hand and whispered with her last strength, "Emily, never let the darkness take your light. Fight for yourself. Promise me." And before I could answer, her eyes closed forever. Her burial was arranged quickly. The whole community came, because everyone loved my mother. She was the kind of woman who would share her last meal with a hungry stranger. The church was packed full. Songs were sung, tears were shed, and all eyes turned to me, the only daughter of the woman being buried. I thought the worst pain I would feel that day was losing my mother. But I was wrong. What I didn't know was that my father had been waiting for that very moment. Waiting to break me in the cruelest way possible. That afternoon, while everyone was still mourning, he pulled me away. His grip was strong, his face hard. I thought he wanted to give me advice, or maybe to comfort me. Instead, he pushed me into the vestry. His eyes looked wild, like a predator. And then the unthinkable happened. I struggled. I cried. I called out for help. And then suddenly, the sound of my cries filled the entire church through the microphone he had forgotten to turn off. The congregation froze in disbelief. People looked at each other, confused at first, then horrified as the truth sank in. The priest stepped back, his face pale. My uncle clenched his fists in anger. Children began to cry because they didn't understand what was happening, only that something terrible was taking place. And at that very moment, as my voice echoed through the sacred hall, I realized my life would never, ever be the same again. But before I tell you what happened next in that church, the shouts, the chaos, the storm that followed, let me take you further back, into the secrets that led up to that moment. Because to truly understand the weight of that day, you need to know the story of the girl I was before my world broke apart. The church turned into chaos. My screams through the microphone made the mourners drop their hymn books. And the wails of sorrow quickly turned into cries of shock and anger. People could not believe what they were hearing. Some stood up and rushed towards the vestry, others froze in confusion. My father's face turned pale when he realized the microphone was on. His evil secret had been exposed in front of everyone. He tried to silence me, pressing his rough hand over my mouth, but it was too late. The damage was done. My cries were already ringing in every ear. The church that was meant to be a place of comfort during my mother's burial had suddenly turned into a battlefield of truth. "Open this door," someone shouted from outside. It was my uncle, my mother's younger brother. He banged on the door so hard that it shook. The priest was yelling, "Brother James, what is going on in there? Open the door now." I was trembling, tears rolling down my face, my whole body shaking. I felt weak, but also strangely strong, because deep inside me I knew, this time, the truth could not be hidden anymore. Suddenly the door burst open. My uncle and two other men dragged my father away from me. He fought, he struggled, he screamed that I was lying, but nobody believed him anymore. Everyone had heard my cries through the speakers. Everyone had heard me begging him to stop. The congregation gasped. Some women covered their mouths with their hands. Some men were ready to beat my father to death right there inside the church. The priest stood frozen, his Bible shaking in his hands. I remember looking around and seeing pity, anger, and shock on people's faces. But what I also saw was something else, judgment. Whispers started immediately. Could this be true? How could a man do this to his own daughter? But she's his child. The whispers pierced my heart almost as much as my father's actions. I wanted to vanish. I wanted the ground to open and swallow me. Then I collapsed. My body gave up. The last thing I remember was hearing my uncle shouting, "Call the police. He must pay for this," before everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying on a bed in a small house near the church. It was my grandmother's house. She sat beside me, her wrinkled hands holding mine tightly. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "My child, I am so sorry. I should have protected you." Her voice was soft, but her eyes were burning with fire. "Your father will never hurt you again. I promise you that." I wanted to believe her, but deep inside me, fear was still alive. My father was powerful in the community. He had money, influence, and respect. People looked up to him. And I knew he would not let this go easily. Later that evening, the police arrived. They dragged my father away in handcuffs. He shouted at me, cursed me, and even spat on the ground as they pulled him out. His eyes locked on mine, full of hatred, as if I was the one who had destroyed his life. But even as the handcuffs clinked, I could hear some members of the church whispering again, "Are you sure the girl isn't making this up? You know how teenagers are these days." Those whispers cut me like knives. I wanted to scream at them. "Didn't you hear me crying? Didn't you hear me begging for help?" But my lips stayed shut. That night, as I lay in my grandmother's small room, staring at the wooden ceiling, I thought of my mother's last words. "Never let the darkness take your light. Fight for yourself." And for the first time, I understood what she meant. This battle was not just about what happened in the church. It was about my future, my dignity, my voice. But little did I know, the fight had only just begun. Because the very next morning, something happened that shook me even more than the night before. Something that made me realize my father was not the only monster I had to face. My hands were shaking as I stepped out of the room. The hallway was dim, lit only by a small bulb at the far end. I could hear the men's footsteps growing closer. My heart thudded so loudly I was sure they would hear it. I tiptoed quickly, trying to move without making a sound, but one of the floorboards creaked beneath my feet. "Wait, did you hear that?" one of the men whispered. I froze. My body turned cold. I darted down the hall, running as fast as I could. My bare feet slapped against the cold floor. The girls in the other room stirred, confused by the noise. Some sat up, their eyes wide, but I didn't stop to explain. I ran straight to the back door of the shelter. I pulled at the handle, but it wouldn't open. It was locked from the outside. Panic rose in my throat. I was trapped. The men were getting closer. I could hear them behind me. There. She's there. Grab her. I screamed. My voice echoed through the shelter. The other girls woke up fully, their frightened cries filling the air. Then suddenly Miss Clara appeared at the top of the stairs, holding a wooden stick. "What is going on here?" she shouted. When she saw the men, her face hardened. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" The men ignored her and lunged toward me. I dropped to the floor, crawling under a table, tears streaming down my face. Miss Clara swung the stick with all her strength, hitting one of them across the back. He groaned in pain, but the other grabbed her arm and pushed her to the wall. The shelter erupted into chaos. The girls screamed, some throwing whatever they could find. Shoes, books, plates at the intruders. But the men were strong, too strong. One of them finally caught my ankle and yanked me out from under the table. "Got her," he growled. "No." I screamed, kicking wildly. My nails scratched his arm, my legs thrashed, but he held on tight. And just as I thought it was over, red and blue lights flashed through the windows. A police siren wailed outside. The men panicked. "Cops! Let's go." They dropped me roughly to the floor and bolted toward the back door. This time the police were waiting. Shots fired into the air, shouts filled the night, and within minutes, both men were dragged away in handcuffs. I lay on the cold floor, shaking, my breath coming in sharp gasps. Miss Clara knelt beside me, holding my face in her hands. "Emily, you're safe now. You're safe." But I didn't feel safe. Not at all. Because if those men could find me here, in a shelter meant to protect girls like me, it meant someone on the inside had betrayed me. I looked into Miss Clara's eyes and I whispered, "They'll never stop, will they?" "He will never stop." And she couldn't answer me. The next morning I got my answer. The police chief came to speak with me. His words made my blood run cold. "Emily, those men confessed. They were paid to take you away. By someone close to your father." My world spun. I clutched the photo of my mother to my chest, trembling. If my father could reach me even from a prison cell, then nowhere was safe. And that was when I realized I had to stop waiting for protection. I had to find my own strength. But I didn't know that in my journey to survive, another betrayal was waiting for me. One I never saw coming. The police chief's words echoed in my mind like a haunting drum. "They were paid by someone close to your father." I sat frozen on the bed in the shelter's small infirmary, clutching my knees to my chest. The other girls watched me quietly, their faces filled with pity and fear. No one spoke because they all knew what it meant. If my father had help on the outside, then my nightmare was far from over. "Who?" I finally whispered. "Who would do this?" The police chief shifted uncomfortably. "We are still investigating. But what we know so far is the payment came from someone in your family." My stomach twisted. Family? Who could it be? My mother was gone, my grandmother believed me, and I had no siblings. That left only uncles, aunts, and cousins. Could one of them really betray me? Later that evening, Miss Clara sat with me in the dining hall. She tried to encourage me, but I could see the worry in her eyes. "Emily, you must stay strong. Darkness always fights hardest when it knows your light can expose it." I wanted to believe her words, but fear clung to me like a shadow. A week later, the truth revealed itself. I was called to the police station for questioning. When I walked into the room, my heart nearly stopped. Sitting there in handcuffs was my mother's younger brother, Uncle David. The same uncle who had broken the vestry door to save me on the day of the burial. The same uncle who had shouted, "Call the police. He must pay for this." My voice trembled. "Uncle David? Why are you here?" He didn't meet my eyes. His head was bowed, his face dark with shame. The officer said, "Emily, your uncle confessed. He was the one who gave money to those men. He arranged for them to silence you." I staggered back, my legs weak. No, that can't be true. He saved me. He's the one who pulled my father off me." Uncle David finally lifted his head. Tears glistened in his eyes. "Emily, I didn't want it to go this far. I only wanted the case to disappear. Your father, he offered me money. more than I've ever seen in my life. He promised that if you kept quiet we could all live in peace. I thought, his voice broke. I thought I was protecting the family name. The words stabbed me harder than any knife. Protecting the family name? At the cost of my life? At the cost of my mother's memory? Do you know what you did to me? I shouted, my whole body shaking. You tried to hand me over to the same man who destroyed my life. You were supposed to protect me. He lowered his head again, too ashamed to answer. The officer said calmly, "Don't worry, Emily. He will face the law. He betrayed you, but he won't escape justice." But I didn't feel relieved. My heart was shattered all over again. First my father, now my uncle. The two men who should have protected me were the ones who broke me. That night, back at the shelter, I sat alone by the window, staring at the city lights. My tears refused to stop. And then a dangerous thought crossed my mind. Maybe my life wasn't worth fighting for. Maybe the darkness had already won. I closed my eyes, whispering to myself, "Mama, if you can hear me, I don't know if I can keep going." And it was in that moment of weakness that I made a decision that would lead me into another extreme turn. One that would shock even me. Because the very next day, I tried to end my own life. My hands were shaking as I stepped out of the room. The hallway was dim, lit only by a small bulb at the far end. I could hear the men's footsteps growing closer. My heart thudded so loudly I was sure they would hear it. I tiptoed quickly, trying to move without making a sound. But one of the floorboards creaked beneath my feet. "Wait, did you hear that?" one of the men whispered. I froze. My body turned cold. I darted down the hall, running as fast as I could. My bare feet slapped against the cold floor. The girls in the other room stirred, confused by the noise. Some sat up, their eyes wide, but I didn't stop to explain. I ran straight to the back door of the shelter. I pulled at the handle, but it wouldn't open. It was locked from the outside. Panic rose in my throat. I was trapped. The men were getting closer. I could hear them behind me. "There. She's there. Grab her." I screamed. My voice echoed through the shelter. The other girls woke up fully, their frightened cries filling the air. Then suddenly Miss Clara appeared at the top of the stairs, holding a wooden stick. "What is going on here?" she shouted. When she saw the men, her face hardened. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" The men ignored her and lunged toward me. I dropped to the floor, crawling under a table, tears streaming down my face. Miss Clara swung the stick with all her strength, hitting one of them across the back. He groaned in pain, but the other grabbed her arm and pushed her to the wall. The shelter erupted into chaos. The girls screamed, some throwing whatever they could find. Shoes, books, plates at the intruders. But the men were strong, too strong. One of them finally caught my ankle and yanked me out from under the table. "Got her," he growled. "No." I screamed, kicking wildly. My nails scratched his arm, my legs thrashed, but he held on tight. And just as I thought it was over, red and blue lights flashed through the windows. A police siren wailed outside. The men panicked. "Cops! Let's go." They dropped me roughly to the floor and bolted toward the back door. This time the police were waiting. Shots fired into the air, shouts filled the night, and within minutes, both men were dragged away in handcuffs. I lay on the cold floor, shaking, my breath coming in sharp gasps. Miss Clara knelt beside me, holding my face in her hands. "Emily, you're safe now. You're safe." But I didn't feel safe. Not at all. Because if those men could find me here, in a shelter meant to protect girls like me, it meant someone on the inside had betrayed me. I looked into Miss Clara's eyes and I whispered, "They'll never stop, will they?" "He will never stop." And she couldn't answer me. The next morning I got my answer. The police chief came to speak with me. His words made my blood run cold. "Emily, those men confessed. They were paid to take you away. By someone close to your father." My world spun. I clutched the photo of my mother to my chest, trembling. If my father could reach me even from a prison cell, then nowhere was safe. And that was when I realized I had to stop waiting for protection. I had to find my own strength. But I didn't know that in my journey to survive, another betrayal was waiting for me. One I never saw coming. The police chief's words echoed in my mind like a haunting drum. They were paid by someone close to your father. I sat frozen on the bed in the shelter's small infirmary, clutching my knees to my chest. The other girls watched me quietly, their faces filled with pity and fear. No one spoke because they all knew what it meant. If my father had help on the outside, then my nightmare was far from over. Who? I finally whispered. Who would do this? The police chief shifted uncomfortably. We are still investigating. But what we know so far is the payment came from someone in your family. My stomach twisted. Family? Who could it be? My mother was gone, my grandmother believed me, and I had no siblings. That left only uncles, aunts, and cousins. Could one of them really betray me? Later that evening, Miss Clara sat with me in the dining hall. She tried to encourage me, but I could see the worry in her eyes. Emily, you must stay strong. Darkness always fights hardest when it knows your light can expose it. I wanted to believe her words, but fear clung to me like a shadow. A week later, the truth revealed itself. I was called to the police station for questioning. When I walked into the room, my heart nearly stopped. Sitting there in handcuffs was my mother's younger brother, Uncle David. The same uncle who had broken the vestry door to save me on the day of the burial. The same uncle who had shouted, "Call the police. He must pay for this." My voice trembled. Uncle David? Why are you here? He didn't meet my eyes. His head was bowed, his face dark with shame. The officer said, "Emily, your uncle confessed. He was the one who gave money to those men. He arranged for them to silence you." I staggered back, my legs weak. No, that can't be true. He saved me. He's the one who pulled my father off me. Uncle David finally lifted his head. Tears glistened in his eyes. Emily, I didn't want it to go this far. I only wanted the case to disappear. Your father, he offered me money. More than I've ever seen in my life. He promised that if you kept quiet, we could all live in peace. I thought, his voice broke. I thought I was protecting the family name. The words stabbed me harder than any knife. Protecting the family name? At the cost of my life? At the cost of my mother's memory? Do you know what you did to me? I shouted, my whole body shaking. You tried to hand me over to the same man who destroyed my life. You were supposed to protect me. He lowered his head again, too ashamed to answer. The officer said calmly, "Don't worry, Emily. He will face the law. He betrayed you, but he won't escape justice." But I didn't feel relieved. My heart was shattered all over again. First my father, now my uncle. The two men who should have protected me were the ones who broke me. That night, back at the shelter, I sat alone by the window, staring at the city lights. My tears refused to stop. And then a dangerous thought crossed my mind. Maybe my life wasn't worth fighting for. Maybe the darkness had already won. I closed my eyes, whispering to myself, "Mama, if you can hear me, I don't know if I can keep going." And it was in that moment of weakness that I made a decision that would lead me into another extreme turn. One that would shock even me. Because the very next day, I tried to end my own life. The morning after I discovered Uncle David's betrayal, I woke up feeling like my chest was full of stones. Every breath was heavy. My body was alive, but inside, I felt dead already. I sat on the small bed in the shelter, hugging my knees, staring blankly at the cracked wall. Around me, the other girls laughed and whispered, trying to distract themselves from their own pain. But I couldn't join them. Their voices felt distant, like echoes from a world I no longer belonged to. Uncle David's face haunted me. I could still see him sitting in those handcuffs, his eyes filled with shame as he confessed. My own uncle. The same man who once lifted me on his shoulders when I was small, the same man who used to bring me candy, had sold me for money. He had been ready to let strangers drag me away, maybe to my death, just to protect my father's name. The thought made me sick. I whispered to myself, if even he could betray me, then who do I have left? The answer came quickly, no one. I had no one. Not my father. Not my uncle. Not the church people who now called me a liar. My mother was gone, and the only person who truly loved me was buried in the ground. The thought hit me like lightning. What's the point of living anymore? That day I made my decision. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want speeches. I didn't want pity. I just wanted the pain to end. When evening came, I waited until the shelter grew quiet. The girls were in the common room watching a movie. Miss Clara was in her office busy with paperwork. Slowly I slipped away, my feet carrying me to the small bathroom at the end of the hall. Inside it was silent. Only the dim light bulb buzzed faintly above my head. I locked the door behind me and stood in front of the mirror. I barely recognized the girls staring back at me. My eyes were swollen from crying, my face pale, my lips cracked. I looked like a ghost, half alive, half gone already. I whispered to the mirror, "Mama, I'm sorry. I can't keep fighting." I tried. But I can't. My eyes drifted to the shelf under the sink. There was a bottle of cleaning liquid there, poisonous, sharp-smelling, dangerous. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I unscrewed the cap, the sour scent burning my nose. My fingers shook so badly I could barely hold it. Tears blurred my vision as I lifted the bottle toward my lips. "Goodbye," I whispered. But just as the liquid touched the rim of the bottle, the door burst open with a loud crash. "Emily," a voice screamed. The bottle slipped from my hand and spilled across the floor. I spun around, my heart pounding. Standing there in the doorway was Sarah, one of the older girls at the shelter. Her eyes were wide, her chest heaving from running. Before I could react, she rushed forward, grabbed me by the shoulders, and shook me hard. "What are you doing? Are you crazy?" I broke down instantly, falling into her arms. The words poured out of me like floodwaters. "I can't do this anymore, Sarah. I can't live with this pain. My father, my uncle, everyone hates me. They call me a liar. They want me gone. They want me dead. I just want it to stop." Sarah hugged me tightly, her arms strong around me. She didn't let go, even as my body shook with sobs. Then she pulled back, her eyes fierce, her voice sharp but full of love. "Listen to me, Emily. You don't get to end it like this. Do you hear me? You don't let them win. If you die, your father wins. Your uncle wins. Every single person who called you a liar wins. And your mother's fight dies with you." Her words hit me like a thunderbolt. For the first time, I realized that ending my life wasn't going to stop the darkness. It was going to feed it. It was going to hand victory to the very people who wanted me silenced. I collapsed against her, sobbing harder. She stroked my hair and whispered, "You are stronger than you know, and one day the world will see it." Miss Clara rushed in after hearing the commotion. When she saw the spilled liquid, she covered her mouth in shock. She didn't scold me. She didn't shout. She just sat on the floor beside us, holding my hand, her tears falling silently. We stayed like that for a long time, the three of us huddled together in the dim bathroom. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind was heavy, but something Sarah said kept echoing in my head. "If you die, they win." For the first time I made a decision not to give up, not to run away, but to fight. Even if I was scared. Even if I was broken. Even if I had to stand alone. But I didn't know that the next betrayal was already waiting for me. And this time it would not come from my father or my uncle. It would come from someone inside the very shelter that saved me. After the night in the bathroom, everyone in the shelter treated me differently. Sarah never left my side, like a big sister watching over me. Miss Clara checked on me every morning and every night. Even the younger girls looked at me with wide, curious eyes, whispering when they thought I couldn't hear. "She almost did it. But she's still here. She must be really strong." I didn't feel strong. I felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter at the slightest touch. But I clung to Sarah's words. "If you die, they win." So I kept moving. I woke up every day. I ate when I could. I joined the group sessions. I tried. For a short while, life in the shelter became calm. Almost peaceful. I began to think maybe, just maybe, I could heal here. But peace never lasts long when darkness is chasing you. One afternoon, I was sitting in the courtyard sketching in a small notebook when I overheard two girls talking nearby. They didn't notice me listening. "Did you hear what Anna said?" one whispered. "Yeah," the other replied. "She told Miss Clara that Emily is making up stories. That none of it happened." My chest tightened. Anna was another girl in the shelter. She was about my age, with long brown hair and a soft voice. She had always been kind to me, or so I thought. She was the one who shared food with me when I couldn't eat, the one who helped braid my hair, the one who sat beside me during group therapy. Why would she say that? That evening, I confronted her. My voice shook as I asked, "Anna, did you tell people I was lying?" For a moment, her face was unreadable. Then she sighed and looked away. "Emily, listen. I just think maybe you're exaggerating. I mean, your father is in jail already. Why keep talking about it? Why drag the family name through more dirt? People are getting tired of your story." Her words felt like knives. "Getting tired?" I whispered, tears filling my eyes. "You think I asked for this? You think I want to carry this pain every single day?" Anna crossed her arms. "I'm just saying, sometimes it's better to keep quiet. People don't like troublemakers." Troublemaker. The word echoed in my head long after she walked away. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if Anna was right. Maybe people would never see me as a victim. Maybe they would always see me as a liar, as trouble, as a burden. But the truth revealed itself a few days later, and it was worse than I imagined. Late one evening, I passed by Miss Clara's office and heard voices inside. I stopped, my heart pounding. It was Anna's voice. "She's too much trouble," Anna was saying. "Everyone's tired of her story. If you keep her here, the shelter will lose its funding. Donors don't want scandals like this." My breath caught in my throat. Miss Clara's voice was calm but firm. "Anna, I don't know why you're saying these things. Emily needs protection. She's not lying. I believe her." Anna's tone sharpened. "Believe what you want. But sooner or later you'll see. Keeping her here will destroy this shelter. She doesn't belong." I pressed my back against the wall, tears streaming silently. Anna, the girl I trusted, the girl I thought was my friend, was the one turning people against me. I ran to my room, burying my face in the pillow so no one would hear me cry. And for the first time since arriving at the shelter, I realized something terrifying. The enemy wasn't just outside anymore. The enemy was inside. And she was smiling at me every single day. From the moment I overheard Anna in Ms. Clara's office, I could no longer look at her the same way. Her smile, her soft voice, even the way she reached for my hand during meals, it all felt like poison now. But the hardest part was pretending. I had to act like I didn't know what she was doing, because if she realized I had heard her, I didn't know what she might try next. The shelter no longer felt safe. The walls that once protected me now felt like traps, and Anna's presence turned every corner into a shadowy threat. At first, it was little things. My clothes, neatly folded in my drawer, began disappearing. My small notebook, the one where I scribbled my thoughts, went missing for 2 days before turning up in the trash. When I asked Anna if she had seen it, she smiled sweetly and said, "Maybe you lost it yourself." But then things got worse. One morning during breakfast, Miss Clara announced, "Girls, please listen. We've received a report that someone has been stealing food and hiding it under their bed. That behavior is not acceptable here." The room went silent. Everyone's eyes scanned the room, searching for the guilty face. My stomach dropped when Anna suddenly pointed at me. "It was Emily," she said calmly. "I saw her sneaking bread and fruit into her bag last night." My heart stopped. "That's not true." I cried, my voice shaking. "I didn't." But Anna cut me off. "Check her things if you don't believe me." Miss Clara frowned, her eyes full of worry. She led me to my room and opened my drawer. And there, to my horror, she pulled out a bag filled with bread and fruit. Exactly what Anna had accused me of hiding. I couldn't breathe. I had never touched that food. The other girls began whispering. She lied. I thought she was different. First all those stories about her dad, and now this? Tears burned my eyes. I turned desperately to Miss Clara. "Please, you have to believe me." I didn't take it. Someone put it there. But though her eyes softened, her voice was firm. "Emily, I want to believe you. But the evidence is here. Please don't make this harder for yourself." And just like that, I was branded a thief. Anna smiled at me across the table that night, her eyes glittering with victory. She leaned in close and whispered so only I could hear. "No one's going to believe you. Not here. Not anywhere. You can scream, you can cry, but it won't matter. Everyone will always see you as trouble." Her words chilled me to the bone. It was happening all over again. Just like with my father. Just like with the church. Just like with the community. Lies were burying me alive. That night I lay awake in my bed, my mind racing. I had fought so hard to stay alive, but now I was trapped in a new kind of prison. One built with whispers, tricks, and betrayal. And I realized something terrifying. Anna wasn't just trying to turn people against me. She wanted me gone. And if she had fooled everyone once, what would she do next to destroy me completely? The shelter used to feel like a place of safety, but now it felt like a battlefield, and Anna was the enemy hiding in plain sight. Everywhere I went, whispers followed me. That's the girl who stole the food. She always causes trouble. Maybe her father wasn't so bad after all. Maybe she's the liar. Those words stung worse than knives. It was like Anna had thrown me back into the same darkness I had fought so hard to escape. But she wasn't finished with me yet. One evening, after dinner, Ms. Clara gathered us all in the hall. "Girls," she said with a heavy sigh, "someone has been writing threatening notes and leaving them under doors. This is serious. We will find out who's doing this." My heart raced. Notes. Threats. The girls gasped and began talking over each other. Some swore they hadn't seen anything. Others claimed to have found folded scraps of paper with words like, "You don't belong here," and "Leave before it's too late." Before I could process it, Anna stood up, her voice shaking with false fear. I think it's Emily." The room went silent. Miss Clara's eyes widened. "Why would you say that?" Anna clasped her hands dramatically. "Because I saw her writing something last night. She looked nervous, like she didn't want anyone to see. And one of the notes slipped from her bed this morning." Gasps filled the room. All eyes turned to me. "That's a lie," I shouted, my hands trembling. "I didn't write any notes. I would never threaten anyone." But Anna was already pulling something from her pocket. A crumpled piece of paper. She held it out to Miss Clara, who unfolded it carefully. The words hit me like a slap. "Get out of here before something bad happens." And it was signed with my name. "No," I whispered, my legs giving out beneath me. "No, I didn't write that. You have to believe me." The girls started murmuring again, their eyes filled with fear and suspicion. Miss Clara's face was troubled. She didn't want to believe it, but with the stolen food and now this note, everything pointed to me. She finally spoke. "Emily, until I can sort this out, I think it's best that you stay in your room during group activities. Just for a few days." Her words crushed me. It wasn't just punishment, it was isolation. And Anna knew it. That night, locked away in my room while the others laughed and watched movies together, I curled into a ball and wept. Through the crack in the door, I heard footsteps. Then a whisper, low and venomous. "Tick-tock, Emily. They're almost ready to throw you out. And when they do, you'll have nowhere left to run." It was Anna. Her footsteps faded into the hall, leaving me trembling in the dark. I realized then that Anna wasn't just trying to turn people against me. She was trying to erase me completely. Just like my father had tried to do. And if I didn't find a way to expose her soon, she would succeed. The silence of my isolation was unbearable. I could hear the other girls laughing in the common room, playing games and sharing stories. But me? I was locked away like a criminal. And all because of Anna. Every night, she walked past my door. Sometimes she would whisper things just loud enough for me to hear. "They hate you. You'll be out soon. No one believes you." Her words burrowed into my chest like needles. I almost started to believe them. Almost. But then one night, as I lay staring at the ceiling, Sarah snuck into my room. She closed the door gently behind her and whispered, "Emily, I believe you." Tears filled my eyes instantly. But everyone else thinks I'm lying. Sarah sat on the edge of my bed, her face fierce with determination. "I know you didn't steal that food. I know you didn't write those notes. And I know Anna is behind this. I've seen the way she looks at you." My heart pounded. "But how can we prove it?" She leaned closer. "We catch her in the act." From that night, Sarah and I formed a plan. She would keep her eyes on Anna, watching everything she did. And I would stay calm, even when Anna pushed me. Because one thing was certain, sooner or later, Anna would slip. And she did. A week later, just before breakfast, Sarah pulled me aside, her eyes blazing. "I saw her," she whispered. "Anna snuck into your drawer last night with a piece of paper. I think she's planting another note." My stomach dropped. If that's true, we have to show Ms. Clara. So we set the trap. That evening, I asked Ms. Clara if she could check my room with me. At first, she hesitated, but something in my eyes must have convinced her. When we entered, Sarah was already there, standing by my bed. And sure enough, there it was. A folded piece of paper, sitting neatly on top of my clothes. Ms. Clara unfolded it. The words made her face pale. "You are not safe here. Leave or you'll regret it." Anna's handwriting was neat, but she had signed it with my name again. I couldn't breathe. I turned to Ms. Clara, my voice trembling. "Please, you saw me with your own eyes. I didn't put that there. How could I, when Sarah was standing here the whole time?" Sarah stepped forward quickly. "I saw Anna sneak into Emily's drawer last night. I didn't say anything until now because I wanted you to see for yourself." For a long, heavy moment, Miss Clara stared at the note, then at me, then at Sarah. Finally, she spoke, her voice sharp. "Bring Anna here." When Anna entered the room, her expression was sweet and innocent. "What's going on?" she asked softly. Miss Clara held up the note. "Do you know anything about this?" Anna's face barely changed. "Of course not. Emily must have written it herself. She's been trying to get attention since she came here." But this time Miss Clara's eyes didn't soften. This time she saw through the lie. "Anna," she said firmly, "we've had enough of this. Sarah saw you sneaking into Emily's drawer. And this isn't the first time something suspicious has happened. I think it's time we had a serious talk about your behavior." Anna's face turned pale. For the first time her mask cracked. She opened her mouth to argue, but Miss Clara's voice cut through the room like steel. "Not another word. You've hurt someone who has already been hurt enough." Relief flooded me so quickly that I collapsed onto the bed, sobbing. Sarah wrapped her arm around me. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't the liar. I wasn't the troublemaker. I was seen. But as I wiped my tears, I noticed the look in Anna's eyes. It wasn't fear. It wasn't shame. It was rage. And deep down I knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. For a few days after Ms. Clara confronted Anna, the shelter felt different. The whispers stopped. The girls who once doubted me began sitting beside me again at meals. Sarah and I even laughed a little during group sessions. For the first time in so long, I felt the faint glow of hope. But peace never lasts. Not in my life. Anna's eyes followed me everywhere. She didn't speak to me anymore, but her silence was louder than words. There was something in her stare, cold, sharp, dangerous. Sarah warned me, "Be careful. She's planning something." I tried to ignore it. I wanted to believe Anna had learned her lesson. But deep down, I knew Sarah was right. Anna wasn't the type to lose quietly. And then one night, everything changed. It was just past midnight when I woke to the sound of footsteps in the hall. At first, I thought it was one of the staff doing rounds. But then, a faint creak came from my door. I sat up, my heart racing. The knob turned slowly, and the door creaked open. A shadow slipped inside. "Who's there?" I whispered, my voice trembling. The figure moved closer. And when the dim moonlight touched her face, I froze. It was Anna. Her eyes gleamed, and in her hand was something shiny. My breath caught when I realized. It was a small piece of broken glass. "Anna, what are you doing?" I whispered, my voice breaking. She didn't answer. She stepped closer, the glass catching the faint light. "You should have stayed quiet, Emily," she hissed. "You should have let me win. Now you've made me look like a fool." Fear wrapped around my throat like a rope. My body refused to move. Before she could take another step, Sarah's voice exploded from the doorway. "Stop right there." I turned to see Sarah standing in the hall, her hands balled into fists. She must have heard something and followed. Anna froze, her hand shaking. For a split second, the mask of sweetness returned to her face. I wasn't going to hurt her. I just wanted to talk. But the glass in her hand told the truth. Sarah didn't buy it. She grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the door. "Come on, Emily." We ran down the hall, shouting for Miss Clara. Within moments, the lights flicked on and staff came rushing. They grabbed Anna before she could escape. The glass shard clattered to the floor. Miss Clara's face turned white as she took in the scene. Anna, how could you? Anna's mask shattered completely then. Her face twisted with rage as she screamed. She doesn't belong here. She's ruining everything. Why can't you see it? Her voice echoed through the shelter. The other girls peeked from their doors, wide-eyed, as staff dragged Anna away. I stood trembling, my hand still clutched in Sarah's. Tears poured down my face. But this time they weren't just from fear. They were from relief. Anna was finally caught. But as they led her away, her final words cut through the silence like a knife. This isn't over, Emily. Not even prison will stop me. You'll never be safe. Those words burned into my heart. And I knew deep down that she meant them. After Anna was taken away that night, the shelter felt different. For the first time since I arrived, I could sleep without looking over my shoulder. The girls whispered about her, shocked by what she had tried to do. Some pitied her. Others said she was evil. But me? I felt torn. I was relieved she was gone, but her final words haunted me. This isn't over, Emily. Not even prison will stop me. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard them. Sarah tried to comfort me. She can't hurt you anymore. You're safe now. But I knew better. Safety was a word I no longer believed in. Weeks passed. Slowly, I began to heal. Miss Clara arranged therapy sessions just for me. The girls started including me in games. I even laughed again, though it felt strange in my mouth after so much pain. For a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, my life was turning around. But peace never lasts. One afternoon, Ms. Clara called me into her office. Her face was pale, her lips pressed into a thin line. I sat nervously across from her, my heart pounding. Emily, she said gently, there's something you need to know. My hands tightened in my lap. What is it? She took a deep breath. Your father. He's asking for an appeal. The air was sucked out of my lungs. What? She nodded grimly. His lawyers are pushing for a retrial. They claim the evidence against him was weak, and they're using your uncle's confession as part of their defense. I felt like I was drowning. But everyone heard it. The microphone. I know, Miss Clara said quickly, reaching for my hand. I know what happened. But the court doesn't always work the way it should. His lawyers are arguing that the microphone was faulty, that the recording can't be trusted. Tears blurred my vision. You mean he could be free? She squeezed my hand. I won't lie to you, Emily. It's possible. But we're going to fight this. You won't be alone. Her words were meant to comfort me, but they only filled me with dread. If my father was free, what would stop him from coming after me again? That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside my window made me jump. Every creak of the shelter felt like footsteps coming for me. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I overheard two staff members talking in the hallway. Did you hear? Someone's been hanging around outside the shelter at night. Yeah. The guard said it's a man. He keeps asking questions about one of the girls. Which girl? They lowered their voices, but I caught the word anyway. Emily. My blood ran cold. Was it my father's lawyer? Was it my father himself? Or was it Anna's threat coming true already? One thing was certain. The danger wasn't over. It was only getting closer. From the moment I overheard the staff whispering, my heart became a prisoner inside my chest. Every night, I lay awake, straining my ears for footsteps outside the shelter. Every creak, every shadow through the window blinds, made my blood run cold. Who was the man outside? Why was he asking for me? Days turned into a blur of fear. I tried to act normal around the other girls, but inside I was crumbling. I barely ate. My hands shook during group activities. Even Sarah's presence couldn't calm the storm in my chest. Finally, one evening, Miss Clara called me into her office again. This time, she didn't sit behind her desk. She came around and sat right across from me, her eyes soft but serious. Emily, she said quietly, the man outside, we found out who he is. My breath caught. Who? She hesitated, then said the name that shattered me. Your father. It felt like the ground vanished beneath me. No. I whispered. That's not possible. He's in prison. Miss Clara reached for my trembling hands. He was. But his lawyers worked quickly. They filed an emergency appeal. Somehow, the judge granted him bail while the case is reviewed. I couldn't breathe. My chest heaved as panic swallowed me whole. No, this can't be happening. He can't be here. Not outside this place. Not after what he. My voice broke into sobs. Miss Clara pulled me into her arms. Listen to me, Emily. He cannot come in here. The law protects you. He has no right to be near you. But her words felt empty. I knew my father. The law had never stopped him before. Why would it stop him now? That night, the fear turned into reality. I woke up to the sound of voices outside the shelter gate. At first, I thought it was a dream. But then I heard it. A voice I knew too well. Let me in. She's my daughter. I have a right to see her. My blood froze. It was him. My father. The man whose voice once made me feel safe when I was small now sounded like thunder. Demanding, angry, unstoppable. The security guard tried to calm him. Sir, you can't be here. Please leave before we call the police. But my father only shouted louder. Emily. Emily, I know you can hear me. You're ruining everything. Come out here and face me. I pressed my hands against my ears, shaking, but no matter how hard I tried, his voice still crawled inside my head. The other girls woke up, gathering by the windows in fear. Sarah clutched my hand tightly. Don't move. Don't answer him. Tears streamed down my face. My entire body felt paralyzed. And then, just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, there was a crash. A sound of metal against metal. My father was trying to climb the gate. The alarm blared through the shelter. Staff rushed out. The guard shouted for backup. And in the chaos, my father's voice rose above it all. A roar that sliced through the night. Emily, you belong to me, and nothing can change that. The sound of the alarm ripped through the night like a scream. Girls cried in their rooms, staff shouted orders, and the guard yelled into his radio for help. But all I could hear was my father's voice, booming over the chaos. Emily, you're mine. Come out now. I crouched in the corner of my room, my hands pressed against my ears, my body shaking. Sarah knelt beside me, whispering, Don't move. Don't answer. He can't get you. But her words clashed with the truth echoing in my mind. He was already inside my life, inside my memories, inside my nightmares. Even if the walls of the shelter held, how could they protect me from the prison inside my head? Then came the sound that froze my blood. Crash. The metal gate screeched as my father slammed against it with all his weight. I could hear the clang of steel bending under his rage. The guard shouted, Stay back. I said stay back. But my father roared louder. She's lying. She's destroying me. She's no daughter of mine. And then, silence. The kind of silence that made the air itself feel heavy. Suddenly, the front doors of the shelter rattled violently. He had made it past the gate. He was at the entrance. Open this door, he bellowed, or I'll break it down. Miss Clara rushed into the hall, her face pale but steady. Girls, into your rooms. Staff locked the inner doors. No one let him in. I pressed myself against the wall, my heart hammering so loud I thought it might give me away. Sarah held my trembling hand so tightly it hurt. And then his voice came again. But this time, it wasn't a roar. It was low, dark, venomous. Emily, do you hear me? You will never escape me. Even if it takes the rest of my life, I will make you pay for what you did. Tears streamed down my face. My whole body shook. For a moment, I thought I might faint. Blue and red lights flashed outside. The police had finally arrived. Commands filled the air. Step back. Hands where we can see them. But my father didn't go quietly. His shouts mixed with the officers' warnings. The night became a storm of voices, boots, and struggle. And then another crash. Something heavy slammed against the shelter's outer wall, shaking the floor under my feet. The girls screamed. Staff rushed to keep order. And in the middle of the chaos, one thought burned through my mind like fire. If the police didn't stop him tonight, he would never stop. And neither would I. The flashing lights outside painted the walls of the shelter red and blue. Sirens screamed through the air, but none of it drowned out my father's voice as he fought the police. "Let me go. She's my daughter." I could hear the scuffle, the thud of boots against the ground, the sharp crack of something heavy hitting the pavement. Girls huddled together, sobbing. Some prayed. Others just stared, wide-eyed, at the doors as if they might burst open at any second. Ms. Clara tried to steady us. "Stay calm, everyone. The police have it under control." But her voice trembled, betraying her fear. Sarah squeezed my hand. "Emily, what if he gets in?" I swallowed hard, my throat burning. "If he does, I'll never survive it." Just then, the front door shook violently. He had broken past one of the officers and slammed against it with his shoulder. "Emily," he roared. "If you don't come out, I swear, I'll burn this whole place down." A gasp ran through the shelter. Staff rushed to grab fire extinguishers. Girls screamed louder, some dropping to the floor. "Sir, step away from the building," one officer shouted. "I'll kill anyone who stands between me and my daughter." My father bellowed back. The sound of tasers crackled in the air, followed by a guttural scream. He had been hit, but still he didn't go down. I buried my face into Sarah's shoulder, sobbing. "Why won't he stop? Why won't he just stop?" Then came a sound that silenced us all. Bang! A gunshot. The shelter froze. The girls stopped crying. Even the air itself seemed to pause. For a moment I couldn't breathe. My heart felt like it had stopped. Another officer's voice rang out. "Suspect down. Repeat, suspect is down." My knees buckled. Was it real? Was he finally stopped? Miss Clara rushed outside, shouting orders for the girls to stay put. I crept toward the window, my body trembling, and peeked through the blinds. There he was. My father. Lying on the ground. Blood on his shirt. Cuffs on his wrists. And his eyes locked on mine through the glass, burning with rage even as the officers pinned him down. He mouthed words I'll never forget. "This isn't over." My chest tightened. He wasn't dead. He was still alive. And his promise clung to me like a curse. The officers dragged him into the back of a squad car. His shouts echoed in the night. "Emily, I'll come back for you." And as the car sped away, I collapsed to the floor, shaking, knowing one truth. My nightmare wasn't over. It had only changed shape. For days after that night, the shelter was wrapped in silence. No one wanted to talk about what had happened, but the weight of it hung over us like a storm that hadn't passed. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face pressed against the window, his mouth shaping those terrible words. "This isn't over." But somehow life went on. The girls went back to their routines. Staff tried to pretend everything was normal. Even Sarah pushed me to laugh, to join in, to live again. And slowly, I began to. Therapy sessions helped me let out the poison I had carried inside for years. Ms. Clara reminded me every day that I was more than what had been done to me. One afternoon, she sat me down with news. "Emily," she said softly, "your father's bail has been revoked. After the attack, the judge ruled he's too dangerous. He'll remain behind bars until trial." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. It wasn't freedom, not fully, but it was a piece of it. Still, his shadow lingered. Fear doesn't disappear just because the person is locked away. Fear lives in the cracks of memory, in the dark corners of silence. But I learned something important. Fear doesn't have to win. Because every time I thought I couldn't go on, I did. Every time I thought my life was over, it wasn't. And that, I realized, was my strength. Weeks later, standing before a group of new girls at the shelter, I shared my story for the first time. My hands shook, my voice broke, but I told them anyway. About the church, the microphone, the shame, the betrayal, the night my father came back. When I finished, one girl whispered, "If you can survive that, maybe I can survive too." In that moment, I understood why I was still here. Not just to survive, but to help others survive too. So to everyone listening right now, thank you for walking this painful road with me. My name is Emily. I'm 24 years old, speaking from Houston, Texas. If my story has touched your heart, please subscribe, like this video, and click the notification button so you don't miss the other powerful stories I'll be sharing. And before you go, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to know how far my story has traveled. And remember this lesson. Pain may break you, but it can also build you. Fear may chase you, but courage will carry you further. And no matter what has been done to you, you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. This is my story. This is my survival. And this is only the beginning.